my background is in business and marketing and management, so that's where I found myself able to get into the music industry. But I've definitely learned that musicians, they tend to approach the business aspect of things differently. So when you talk about the industry and the backbone of it, it's not like cats and dogs, but it can be an interesting relationship sometimes dealing with musicians and getting some interesting situations with them.
Definitely.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know how difficult it is to get in the music industry. They think, I'm going to be doing this and I'll be famous. No. How do I know this? Because I have a nephew who's trying to be a rap artist, and I am trying to tell him, no, you don't need all this. You need to build yourself up. And he's not getting the idea of this. So I told him, hey, come listen to the show tonight, or listen to the repeat, whatever, and you'll get more insight what you need. So
that's definitely true. And the building up part is the key thing, because people think, with social media and the internet, it's easy to just get your name out there and start blowing up. But everybody's trying to do that. So you have to build yourself up, and you have to figure out what's going to make you stand out. And you have to be smart about that, and come up with really good, clever, approaches to that, and stick with it. If you do one way and then you switch up, 2 months later, and then switch up again because you think things aren't working, you're never giving things a chance to work. Nothing happens overnight. Of course, there's the Justin Biebers of the world that somebody notices them and, they're connected the right way and they blow up. That happens. But it's so very rare. It takes doing the hard miles, going the distance and realizing that every fan that you gain is another step towards that success, and if you end up being one of those rare people that blows up, all the more power to you. But, it really comes down to the nuts and bolts of really being creative and marketing and the business aspects of things. If you don't have that down, you can be very talented, but it's probable that nobody will ever really pay attention to you.
Yeah, that's kind of the trap that we as musicians kind of fall into. We make what we feel is really excellent stuff. Like, we're sometimes our best, biggest fans are ourselves. We have these huge egos about, I just made this great song, this great album, everyone's going to love it. And then you put it out and maybe people don't, and you're like, why, it's so good. But, there's so much of that kind of, this is so good, and this is so good, and this is so good, floating around out there in the digital world, that it all blurs together. And unless you're, as far as talent goes, if you don't have something very specific that sets you completely apart in such an obvious way, you kind of get lost in the ocean of all these really good bands that, they're all good, but they're all on the same level. They're not doing anything to differentiate themselves from other good bands. And it's not always about getting a gimmick necessarily. It's about hard work, really, to target the right people and the right fans and really set the building blocks for the direction that you're trying to go, instead of just relying completely on, it's just a great song, it should be recognized as a great song. Yeah, maybe, but at the same time, you're going to have to work at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was
reading. Totally true.
I was reading on some articles that another band manager on my Facebook had on, reading all that, and it was just like the do's and the don'ts of promoting your band. Social media works, but don't go overboard, which I have to admit, beginning of the podcast, when I started in December up until February, I did go overboard. But just didn't know how to approach social media in a different direction. But I do know I have bands I've worked in the past who only give out 4-day notice on a show and wonder why no one shows up.
Mm-hmm.
See, I promote bands, but that's about all I do.
It's so funny. I think that that's one of those situations where often a band thinks that somebody else somewhere magically is going to be promoting the show and marketing the show for them and getting the word out. They can just show up, do their sound check, hang out in, backstage, and there's going to be however many fans that are, filling up the venue. That just doesn't happen, and that's actually that's a key piece of my job, my role with my clients, my bands that I work with. I'm that person that makes those things happen. So I'm like, yeah, you can sit back and relax and do those things you want to do, because I'm going to go out there and take many, many steps to push and promote the show and market the show in whatever market you're playing in. And, it's, I guess it's nice for the band, but it's definitely a much needed thing, that way it doesn't get overlooked for them. And, fortunately, I've had a good track record of being able to do that. So, it's all about getting the fans in the venue,
Yeah.
Without that, you don't have it.
Now going along with as far as all that goes, how exactly did you get started in working with musicians? Was it just one of those things where, hey, I'm a huge music fan, I think I want to give this a try, or did a band ask you if you wanted to get involved? How did you get really down into this kind of thing?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, and it was definitely a roundabout way for me. I don't want to get too long-winded with the story, but I have a background in corporate marketing. I used to head up marketing for software companies, and when the recession hit in 2008, I was laid off like so many people were. And basically my wife said to me, I was down and out and I was bummed out. I ended up going overseas to do a marketing project there for 10 days, which the experience was nothing of what I wanted for my future. So decided I didn't want to stay within the corporate realm. And my wife said to me, you need to start your own business. You don't do well with bosses. You're very creative, and you know what you're doing. You're organized. So think about what you want to do, and just get it going. We'll make it work somehow. So I had some friends that were very entrenched in the music industry, very established in the music industry. One of whom is a very successful independent booking agent, probably the most successful in the country. And I was talking about it with him, and he said to me, he's like, you used to go on tour with my band several years ago. You saw the ins and outs of how things work in this industry. You understand the business. You don't get intimidated by people. When people have their own agendas or their own ways they want to do things, you're okay with that, and you can handle those difficult situations, right? So I think you do well at marketing and publicizing and working with bands and in those aspects. And so that's where it started. He helped me get my first few clients, or first couple of clients actually. And basically the premise was work with these guys, do what you are supposed to do for them and make it successful. And so once you have that track record, then I can go and tell other bands like, hey, he's done a good job. He's new at it, but he's learning, and he's got this really good experience before that no, it wasn't in music, but he does understand the music industry. And so with those first couple of clients, I made sure to pay very close attention to every detail, as I still do now, and just make sure that, I delivered everything that I was going to deliver for them, or said I was going to deliver for them. And from there, it's been almost 7 years of an excellent run. And that's, in a nutshell, that's how I got started.
Wow.
Awesome.
Cool.
It's funny.
I apologize. There's a train track right by where I'm sitting right now. There's a train below my house. So if you hear that, I apologize.
I didn't hear a word.
Right,
oh, you're good. We had Winter's End. One of the musicians from Winter's End from Australia was calling us from a McDonald's, using McDonald's Wi-Fi once, and we had somebody else who, who else did we have talking from like a really noisy apartment?
It was Johnny
Sonic,
yeah,
Johnny
over
Sonic,
here in Seattle.
Yep. So yeah, we don't mind a little bit of noise. It's life. Life happens.
Yeah.
all right, good. I feel better now.
Yeah, that's the whole point of being like an internet radio, and you're doing this in your house or comfort in your home, in that you hear weird noises, just not that weird, right?
Well, we haven't heard anything that's been so weird that's we've had to question anything just yet, but you know, there's always time.
The show is still very, very young.
There's plenty of opportunities for the future.
Absolutely. Who knows? Because we have a show coming up in about a month that could change all that.
Maybe.
Yeah. That show is going to be... Okay, kind of like jumping gun here. That show in about 1 month is going to be called Philosophy of a Musician. And I'm going to have Spider he's going to be a musician. He's going to be a co-host, but he's going to be in his musician mind frame. And then we're going to have Sean from... Two Seans, actually. Sean from Maximus and Sean from Serial Session. And we're going to just talk about the philosophy of being a musician.
I've already got my homework started for that, so we're gonna have a good time.
So who knows what kind of noise will coming out of that conversation. Anyway.
Now, one thing I wanted to touch on, Spider, that you had said was about the gimmick part, because, you know, if I'm getting into nitty gritty about stuff, you know, I definitely want to kind of be clear where I stand, because, you know, like, gimmick to me is a dirty word, right? Even though I'm a marketing person by trade, I definitely, you know, I don't like to use the word, and I don't like to approach the creative aspect of things with my clients with a gimmick. But to me, that said, like what we were talking about, you know, coming out as a new artist and doing the hard work, the groundwork to be successful, I do think no matter what you do, you have to tell a story, though. You have to have that identity of who you are. You have to speak to people, and they have to be able to see that identity. Whether it's contrived or not, that's up to the artist, you know? But definitely, like, in my role, if I'm going to sit with a new artist and say, okay, well, you have good music, and you're recording it, and you're going to put that out and release it and everything, and you're going to work with me on that, what's the story behind it, you know? And sometimes I will help them create that stuff. And it can be hard, because sometimes artists, they're not thinking that way. They're thinking, like, my creativity goes into my music. I don't want to sit here and tell some story of, well, you know, here's what's behind the music in me. And it's, you know, but in today's world, you have to speak to people. And when you only have so much time to get people's attention, you know, no matter if they're looking at a video, they're listening to your song, they're looking at a Facebook post, if you're not telling that story and communicating that, and, you know, trying to, you know, attract people that will like that story or be drawn to it or find it, you know, interesting, then you're really kind of going nowhere with your marketing, to be honest with you. So, yeah, gimmick is a dirty word to me, 100%. But telling the story is definitely, I think, an important thing. And that can be just straight genuine. You know, it doesn't have to be like let's spin this into something really cool, creative, catchy, and the next cool thing. But it's still got to be compelling. It's got to get some attention and you know, get their emotions going. Ideally, you know, that's what you want to do, is move the emotion needle.
Well, it's kind of one of those situations where a lot of musicians that are, like, I come partially from a really, like, loud, obnoxious death metal background. That's the first couple bands I was in were both really loud metal bands, and theatrics are kind of go hand in hand with some of that. You can either go the grungy, where you're just jeans, t-shirts, and just banging your head, or you can go into the over the top, like face painting and all that kind of stuff. And the band that I was in was really into theatrical stuff. We did fake blood and all kinds of just crazy stuff, because that's what they were into. And it was kind of a tough balance between, because we would come out and we would do that, and then maybe a week later we'd get somebody pass us on the street if we were out walking around, and they'd say, "Oh yeah, you're the blood guys. Yeah, you guys are great." And we'd be like, "Yeah, that's cool. You remember us."
Blood guys.
But I mean, you'd get other people that would, like, you could see it in the crowd that were just kind of watching us, like, what are these guys doing? It's like they obviously saw it as just a gimmicky thing. Like, they're like, obviously we were trying to make ourselves look like something separate from just the music itself. And it's a kind of a tough line. Like, a gimmick, straight up, is kind of like just something you've built specifically to sell things, almost. Whereas,
Right.
like you're talking about making the story for what is the band all about. It's like the theatrical thing